Now we're joined by Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, I wanted to kick this off. Obviously, the Biden campaign is in turmoil, and it seems like maybe, if you want to start pointing at sources, one person left the Democratic Party earlier this year, and it seems like chaos broke out after that. So maybe there was one person that was holding it all together, and she's joining us now. Tulsi, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Not obviously that part, but just when you see the reports, you have the George Clooney's pulling out, you have the money drying up. This has obviously got to be a big pain point for the Biden administration right now. They really want to push him out.
They do. And I think the thing that people should be paying attention to, and that's very revealing, is number one, they don't care about Joe Biden. They don't care about, who as president could best serve the American people. They don't care about the Constitution. Really, what this is all about is their power, which is why when you listen to what the DNC chair has just said, hey, guys, stop talking about Joe Biden. We need to focus on defeating Trump. You hear what Bill Maher says. He would vote for Joe Biden his brain in a jar over anyone else. You hear what Whoopi Goldberg says. She doesn't care if he can put together a coherent sentence or not. They don't actually care about having a president that's capable and qualified to serve as commander in chief. It's about defeating Trump and only defeating Trump at all costs, because Trump is the greatest threat to their power. All of them, whether it's in the media, the Democrat elite, big tech, all of these guys, they see Trump as the greatest threat to their power because he doesn't bend the knee to them and to the establishment. And that's why they're doing all they can to get rid of him, and why they're not willing to say what is so obvious, which is Joe Biden is unqualified and incapable of being president, and Kamala Harris is just as unqualified and incapable of being president and commander in chief, and would be very dangerous in that position.
Tulsi, we see the push on Capitol Hill from many Democrats that are now openly saying that President Biden should drop out of the race. But it's now being reported today that a lot of the donor money is drying up. The president has raised a lot of money already, hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it was even $127 million in the last month prior to the debate. Is that enough if it were to all dry up to sustain him all the way to November? Or do you think that's the pain point that could really make a difference on where his mind goes?
I think it could really make a difference. We were just shy of 4 months before Election Day. President Trump outraised Joe Biden. I think it was in this last month I believe it was this last month. And so, you're not able to get your message across to voters. I know this firsthand from when I ran for president in 2020. You can do a lot and make every dollar stretch as far as you can. But in my experience, ultimately, when you're battling against the mainstream propaganda media, you're battling against big tech. And in this case, Joe Biden appears, if he decides to stay in the race against the support of people in his own party, he would be battling both his own party as well as President Trump and his campaign and the Republican Party. So, yeah, I think it becomes very difficult to stay in the race. However, he has the bully pulpit of the presidency and the White House, and that should not be underestimated. We should not put past the possibility. He has the levers of power of the government at his fingertips. He has shown he's not afraid to use it. And I don't think we should be surprised if at some point President Biden and his administration decided to do something as egregious and horrific as start a new war or escalate any one of the bubbling conflicts and tensions that we are seeing, and turning it into a war in order to try to use this as a rallying cry for the country to come together and stand behind the country's flag that's waving over the White House today.
It does feel that way. It feels like the pressure is mounting in a way, and you brought up the war situation. I'm going to bring that up with you anyway, because it does feel that we are headed towards that direction. And you're right, when it starts being used for political gain, that's why a lot of our callers call in and go, Logan, you got to quit talking about how Joe Biden can't do this, because Donald Trump, he can beat Joe Biden. He may not be able to beat someone else. The real problem here is, though, you don't want someone with this amount of power. I mean, you could say that, whatever, we're a few months away from the election. You don't want someone with this amount of power to have this kind of control and be able to control things like our military. Even if you disagree with someone completely, even if you are a hard right extremist and you hate the hard left, you don't want that person to be a terrible leader, because your country is at stake in your life.
Quite literally. And this is not This is not some exaggeration or some unrealistic picture that you're painting here. It is a very realistic possibility that we have to be cognizant of. We look to, for example, and Joe Biden mentioned this in his speech at NATO this week, how, Ukraine is a free country. Ukraine will remain a free country. Russia will be defeated. We will continue to stand with Ukraine and fund them, and so on and so on. When he talks about defending democracy, and Ukraine is defending democracy in the world, when he talks about Ukraine being a free country, we have to look at how he uses those words and what he views as a free country and a democracy. As you know well, and I think your listeners know at this point, under Zelensky, Ukraine, they have canceled presidential elections. They have eliminated, prohibited, banned, and imprisoned all of his political opponents and their parties. They have taken control over the media and consolidated it all under the government's control. So there's no freedom of the press. And they've banned the second largest church in Ukraine. So for President Biden to point to Ukraine as a free country, there are a lot of people within Ukraine and us who would beg to differ and are concerned that if this is his definition of freedom and democracy, we again should not be surprised if President Biden and those pulling the strings and making decisions behind the curtain would have the audacity to start a war, to put us in a state of emergency, and even to cancel an election for the sake of national security and protecting our democracy. This would have sounded like an extreme thing for us to talk about even a year ago or 2 years ago. But when we look at what's happening now, we have to consider that these people are so power hungry, they are willing to do anything to defeat Trump and stay in power.
Tulsi, one last question for you. You had the privilege of being vice chair of the DNC, probably what feels like a lifetime ago for you. But there's a lot of talk about the Biden campaign calling delegates to check on their loyalty. And there's a lot of chatter about whether it be a contested convention or some sort of maneuver that's pulled if the powers that be feel like they need to get Biden out. How complicated would that be? Of a process? Is it feasible, or what are we looking at with that?
Here's what I know, both from my time as vice chair of the DNC and also when you look at what happened when Bernie ran against Hillary Clinton in that Democratic primary. Regardless of what the rules are, they will do whatever it takes to get the outcome that they want. So yes, it can be done. And if that's the decision of the Democrat elite to do some shuffling and make some changes, they absolutely will get it done.
Thank you, Tulsi, for joining us. As always, we always appreciate your insights. Again, we are in the middle of our Life and Liberty Drive. We're already halfway through almost the month of July. I looked at the dates to see where I am. It's pretty crazy. We are almost halfway through the month of July, and that means we are halfway to our goal here in our Life and Liberty Drive. So I encourage you right now, if you like this show, if you like what we do here, if you like the organization and the work that we do legally, scan that QR code or go to aclj.org.